This is Joe's Corner 76. I comment on the human condition. Freedom. What does it mean? When I wake up in the morning, I know the sun's going to rise. When I go to bed at night, I assume I'm going to see another day. When I look around me, freedom is here. But I think we've taken it for granted. We've not been in a major conflict for 75 years. 2 whole generations going on to a 3rd generation have not known the horrors of war. And even when we did, for Canadians, it was over there, not here. We have come to think of freedom as something that's our right, that automatically just comes to us. But I want to say I sort of think, especially when I think about Ukraine, I've really had the thought that freedom can only happen when you really value it, when you really, really know what it would be like not to have freedom. I can almost guarantee, except for immigrants that have come here, none of you Canadians that have been born here have ever been through some of the following circumstances. Gone to a concentration camp, lost relatives in a concentration camp, being killed because of your sexuality or your religion. I can guarantee you that you've never lived in a society where a knock on the door in the middle of the night and you're never heard from again and you can't be mentioned. You've never lived in a society where you can only think absolutely one thought, as in North Korea. And that's, we got to worship the leader, we got to listen to what the leader does. When I think of Canada and the freedom we have, I have to stop and take pause, especially being through this pandemic. I've heard so many people say, we've lost our freedom, they're oppressing us, they're Nazis. Oh my God, we've never had it so good even during the pandemic. But freedom, what kind of freedom do we have? One, do we really value freedom? Because we have groups that say, you've taken our freedom away because you don't believe what we believe. And by the way, you shouldn't be alive probably. You shouldn't be here if you don't believe what we believe. We've got groups in society that say that we've got the only way to think. We've got the only way to live. You guys got to be wrong. You guys got to be racist. You guys got to be homophobic. You got to be, oh my goodness, what? But when I look at freedom, what freedom means is the right of free, peaceful assembly. It means the right to have an opinion and to be able to keep it without being discriminated against because of that opinion. It means that you can worship your religion as long as it doesn't harm anyone else. It also has come to mean that if you have a certain type of way you want to live, that's fine as long as it's not harming anyone else. But you've also got to stop and think that before, Canadians had a tolerance for differences of opinion. Canadians had a tolerance for getting along. Canadians had a tolerance for letting society go along in an ordinary, orderly way. Now, we talk about freedom, but freedom today seems to mean polarization of the country, division of the country, families split apart. Let's stop and say first, this country is one of the freest countries in the world. This country has grown to allow you to live, believe, speak, and act in a manner that's not oppressed by the government. I will say that there are problems. I will say that some areas of government are trying to oppress us, but let's get real. We don't have a government that's bombing us. We don't have a government that's killing us. We don't have a government that's arresting us and putting us away. We don't have a government that takes away our freedom of expression. We don't have a government that knocks on the door at night and takes us away. What we do have is the right to change our government by peaceful process, not by armed conflict. What we have is the right to wake up every morning and know we can go outside, we can do this, we can engage in business, we can engage in a profession, because we live in a free society. But what we've got to stop doing is saying, they've taken my freedom away. They're oppressing me. They're putting me down. The government's fascist. This, that. Everybody's against me. Don't be a fool. Get real. You live in a country that's giving you the potential to be almost anything you want. And you take freedom in the same way that you take a breath. It's just there. But if you looked at Ukraine and you've seen what people are doing to be free, if you've seen children, men, women dying for freedom, if you looked at the face of evil, Putin, North Korea, Syria, we don't live in those kind of societies. So please, can you stop and say to yourself, I have freedom. I know I have freedom. I value this freedom. I love to be able to change my government without force. I love to be able to express myself. But I also know that all of these little fringe groups out there that say they've lost their freedom, they've lost their freedom. They haven't lost their freedom. They've got the freedom to express their loss of freedom. I absolutely guarantee you there's a whole number of countries that you wouldn't be able to do that. In this country, you're free to enjoy your sexuality. I guarantee you there's many countries where just mention what you are and you're dead. So let's stop and say, we've got one of the most precious things we can have on the face of the earth. That's the right to be free, the right to speak freely, the right to assemble freely. And let's stop for a second and say, we have to start and appreciate the freedom we have. We have to know that it's such a fragile thing. We have to know that democracy is under attack. We've seen it now. And if we don't stop it, if we don't say we're prepared to fight to keep it, we're going to lose it. And a darkness spread over Europe and the rest of the world during the Second World War. Don't think it can happen again. Freedom has a price. That price, though it sounds old-fashioned, is eternal vigilance and the appreciation of the free society that you live in. Please vote. Please get involved. Please enjoy the freedom you have, knowing how fragile it is. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Joe's Corner 76. You can hear me on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, and YouTube at Joe's Corner 76.